All right, Shalom. First off, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shah, Ahashem Rakakwadash. I want to give double honor to the pastors and the elders of Great Millstone. A peace and salutation to the elect. This is a Sean coming at you once again with another video. And I wanted to point out how, by this coronavirus epidemic slash hoax, it got everybody in a uproar. But the actual virus, hey, the elite in the media is taking it, they swinging it in which a way that they want to bring in their troops in and set up martial law, and then eventually bring in a chip. But how they doing it, it's all controlled through the Heavenly Father, and eventually everything will come to the light. But now they trying to make the coronavirus. They trying to make Jake the face of it, and despite that, because as disgusting as these other nations are, like these so-called Chinese, which is these Moabites, they some disgusting people, and now they trying to switch it up and say that you Jake are the nasty ones, and they say so-called Africans or whatever, but a lot of them are Jake, Now you do got some Ham and Moab been going at it, but I pulled up this article, and it says U.S. warns African Americans to avoid Guangzhou, Guangzhou. It's a city over in China. They telling so-called Jake to avoid it because these Chinese people, these Moabites, they coming down on Jake. And, let me get the article. Well, I had one on. Matter of fact, I'll play it. I'll play the video. It says, see, now these could be Hamites, right? But you do got a lot of Jake that live in, which they call them Africans. They're not Africans, they're Israelites, But let's play this clip. That's them beating up on a so-called African. Now, let me see. Salaki for the ring of death. Let me see. Now I want to ask. Oh, they just doing a bunch of fighting, but I want. Let me see. All right, it says the African community in Guangzhou Zoo is on edge after widespread accounts were shared on social media of people being left homeless this week, as China warning against important coronavirus cases stoke anti-foreigner sentiments. In the southern Chinese city, Africans have been evicted from their homes by landlords and turned away from hotels, despite many claiming to have no recent travel history or known contact with COVID-19 patients. See? So, CNN interviewed more than 24 Africans living in Guangzhou many of whom told of the same experience, being left without a home, being subject to random testing. So these these Moabites are harassing Jake. They trying to make Jake. They trying to make you the face of this coronavirus, and it started over there. This so-called. Well, let's get this article. And a lot of these a lot of these guys are straight up Hamites, but some of them are Jake, some of them are Israelites from Western Africa. It says U.S. warns African Americans to avoid this China city after reports black people are being targeted in coronavirus clampdown. It says people of African descent or with African contact have been subject to mandatory tests and quarantine. Black people are reported to have been evicted. Yeah. And these Moabites, African Americans have been advised to stop traveling to Wuhanzhou, according to an alert issued on Saturday by the United States consulate in the city, citing a local government-led crackdown targeting people of African origin due to COVID-19 fears. Okay, it says the warning following reports that local authorities have imposed tough measures in recent weeks, screening people entering and leaving the city's Little Africa district in Yangzhou, Yuangsu district after 5 Nigerians tested positive for the coronavirus. And you know, Nigeria is West Africa. You got a lot of Israelites over there in West Africa, you know. So it's just another way of them trying to show racism towards Jake, you know. Anything that they can find, and we could prove it in the scriptures that you Israelites always had beef with the other nations. You know, it's nothing new. You know, we always, and that was my point of bringing out the video, because you know, despite whether they were the guys in a thing were in an article were Hamites, but some like which we teach that Jake isn't mingled amongst all these nations. But when they say black people, they mean they talking about you Jakes. You know, they ain't talking. They could be referring to Hamites as well, but mainly you Israelites from West Africa. You know, because it's a lot of Jake over there. That's where the main slave trade were over in West Africa and Europe. You know, despite history, West Africa wasn't the only place where Jake came out of. It was Europe as well. You know, that's why they call it the triangle trade, because it was Europe, West Africa, and they went back and forth to the Americans. And a lot of Gadites and Reubenites went on them boats, them ships too. Let's go back a little bit in history, because I just want to bring out a couple of scriptures to let you know that these other races of people, which is race means gene, your nation. We always had beef with them, and the Chinese are the Moabites. You know, that's Moab. This is this is Psalms chapter 60 and verse 8. And it says, Moab is my washpot. Over Edom will I cast out my shoe. Philistia trumpeth thou because of me. Who will bring me into the strong city? Who will lead me into Edom? Right. So reading this scripture is telling us that Moab and Edom, which is Esau, the so-called white man, and the Chinese man, are our enemies. You know, that's two of our enemies. They always came together to conspire to take us down. You know, they always did that in this in their history. Let's go to 2 Samuel 8, and I'm just bringing out script, couple scriptures to prove how prove these other nations were our enemies. Okay, and as well as the Hamites. The Hamites are our enemies, which are the other Africans that's from in that region. And the Philistines, they were our enemies. We stayed fighting with them. See, a lot of nations, just because Jake is dark and the Hamites are dark, they try to pit us, because if you conspire to do away with a nation, you won't let another nation know who they are. So they try to mingle us together and call us like, oh, you just black people. No, it's different nations. You often hear somebody say, oh, blacks sold other blacks into slavery, which that was true. But guess what? It was two races of people. That's just like saying, oh, the Chinese sold the Japanese into slavery. But you wouldn't just say, oh, the Asians sold the Asians into slavery. You got two different races of people. You got the Chinese, which are the Moabites, and you got the Japanese, which are the Ammonites. You follow me? It says, this is 2 Samuel chapter 8. I could start at 1. It says, and after this it came to pass that David smote, meaning killed, the Philistines and subdued them. And David took Methegama out of the hand of the Philistines. Verse 2. And he smote Moab, which are the Chinese, and measured them with a line, casting them down to the ground. Even with 2 lines measured he put to death. And with 1 full line to keep alive. See? Our King David was tearing them damn Moabites up. These Chinese. It reads, and so the Moabites became David's servants and brought gifts. See? So David put these damn Chinese and these ancient, which are the Moabites, into slavery. Because they were our enemies. That's why these nations don't like us. They always conspired against us because they were our enemies. Go to 6. It says, 2 Samuel 10 and 6. And when the children of Ammon, which are the Japanese, saw that David, Salaki, it says, and when the children of Ammon, Japanese, saw that they stank before David, the children of Ammon sent and hired the Syrian of Bethurahab and the Syrian of Zobah, 20,000 footmen, and King Mecca 1,000 men. And I just wanted to bring out, well, you see Ammon in here. That's another nation. So David was fighting against the Ammonites, which are the Japanese. Let's go to Judges 3. These are different. All these nations, ancient nations that King David, which is our king, he was an Israelite, so-called black man. He was fighting. Well, the armies. We had an army back then. We were fighting these nations back then. The Chinese, the Japanese, the so-called white man, the Japhites, which is the what you call them, the Polynesians, We fought all these nations. You had the who else am I missing? The Arabs, yeah, Arabs, Ishmael, you know, and then they had out of all of these nations, they had separate clans as well. You know, like the Hamites. Out of the Hamites, you had the Philistines. All and then you had the Jebusites. All of these were Hamite, you know, armies and nations. And then out of Moab, you had different armies and nations, and they were called different names. But their main name was the Moabites, which are the Chinese. And then you had Ham, then you had Ishmael, which are the Arabs today. All these people were back then. There ain't nothing new under the sun. This is Judges 3 and 3. Yeah, we were just talking about the Canaanites, the Zidonians. Okay, was I looking for? Let me see, Judges. No, this ain't it. Well, you know what? I'm gonna bring this out. Is Judges 3 and 5. It says, "And the children of Israel dwelt among." You see, because back then, all of these ancient nations, like you had the Hamites, they were dwelling all in the Middle East. You know, so you had the so-called Negroes and the Negroes, Latinos, and so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. We were the Israelites. We were around. We were in the land of Israel, going back 2,000-3,000 years. All these other nations were surrounding us. This is Judges 3 and 5. And the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, which are the Hamites. And all these nations are of Ham. Okay? It says Canaanite, Hittites. Right, that's another nation coming out of Ham. A nation slash army, you know. And Amorites, not Ammonites, but Amorites. That's another nation coming out of Ham, because you got another nation similar, because you'll get that confused. You'll say, "Oh, Amorite." No, you had Ammonites. They came out of the Japanese. This say Amorites. This is a Hamite nation, and you had the Perizzites. That's another Hamite nation, and the Hivites and Jebusites. Okay. It says, and they take daughters to be their wives. Yeah, so Israel was, we were intermarrying with the other nations' daughters, you know. So we mingled, you know. It goes, you know, the seed of the father. That's why it's important, because who you are is depending on who your father is. All right. I just wanted to bring that point out. Let's go to First Kings. You know, just bringing out examples of the other nations that we've fought against. I could start at 1 Kings 11. I could start at 1. It says, "But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughters of Pharaoh." Right? Now listen up. Woman of the Moabites, which are the Chinese. Now King Solomon was a so-called black man, an Israelite man from the tribe of Judah. So he's a black man, right? It says, woman of the Moabites, the Chinese, Ammonites, which are the Japanese, Edomites, which are white women, Zidonians, and Hittites, which are the Hamites. All right? And I believe the Zidonians, they were Arabs, if I'm not mistaken. But if I'm not mistaken, they're either the Arab nation or the another Hamite nation. But basically, they is all the nations, all the main nations are named right here. That kings. So in other words, King Solomon had every nation of women. He went through all of them. He had all the finest women on the planet at that time, and he had a woman out of every nation. Let's read it again. It says, "In woman, daughters of Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh was Ham. Okay, woman of the Moabites, that's Chinese. Ammonites, that's Japanese. Edomites, that's white. Zidonian, which I believe are Arabs, and Hittites, which are Hamites. You know, yeah, and all right, let's go to First Kings. It was Second Kings 24 and 2. Okay, this is Second Kings chapter 24, verse 2. And it reads, "And the Lord sent against him bands of the Chaldees, and bands of the Syrians, and bands of the Moabites, Chinese, and bands of the children of Ammon, Japanese, and sent them against Judah to destroy it." And Judah, which is the so-called Negroes, so-called black man. So just showing you an example of how these other nations, we were always warned in battle zone with these other nations, and ain't nothing never changed. As I read in that article, that's a little war right there that they have on you so-called Negroes. Which that war could have been not a war, but that little beef with the COVID-19, that could have been, you know, that could have been Moab discriminating on some Hamites. But you best to believe Jake is in them, because we did read that it said African Americans to avoid that city, that Chinese city. This is First Corinthians chapter 19, verse 6, and it reads, "And when the children of Ammon, which are the Japanese, saw that they had made themselves odious to David and Hanan, and the children of Ammon sent 1,000 talents of silver to hire them chariots." Well, that was the point. I just wanted to bring out the Ammonites. That's another nation. So King David was always another. King David, the Israelites were always battling with these other nations, and ain't nothing changed. That was my point. They were always our enemies, and they always will be our enemies. You know, U.S. warns African Americans to avoid Guangzhou, a Chinese city, after reports black people are being targeted in coronavirus clampdown. See, so they targeting us, and we should be targeting them damn goops. They the ones over there that's in which it was this disease. We believe the government created it. First they said it was a bunch of gooks eating rats, and which they do get down like that. You know, that's why I personally then stopped eating that from Chinese restaurants throughout the America and the stores. You know, because you never know what's behind those counters. You never know what they might be chopping up, a dog or a cat, or because they're known for that, you know. And that's not me being, you know, discriminatory. It's just the truth, you know. But I hope this was edifying, you know, to the body. You know, Jake is always in a war with the other nations, and it never changed. You know, what's new? You know, they will always be these other nations will always be your enemies, and Esau is starting to show his horns when he, you know, made you the face of the coronavirus. Because first it was a bunch of Chinese people catching it, so called, and then there was a bunch of white people catching it. But now, soon as they say, "Oh, Jake getting it," that's the oh, it's over for Jake. Jake is the face of it now. You know, Jake is the worst person on the earth now. But I hope this is edifying. Till again, shalom.